Welcome to our first Exxon Mobil Executive Residence Program for this academic year. I know it seems like we've been in school all the time, but it's really only been about a month. And so we're delighted today to have Brian Savoy with us. He's already introduced himself to everybody in the first row, and he talked in a class just a little while ago in which he said that he meets with the however many people you have to report to you individually every year. Hundreds of them. So he might check all your hands before you're all done here. Brian Savoy is a native of Southeast Texas and Lamar University College of Business alum. He is Senior Vice President, Chief Accounting Officer, and Controller for Duke Energy. He is responsible for the accounting, financial reporting, and internal controls for the corporation. Brian joined Duke Energy in 2001 as a manager in Duke Energy's energy trading unit, Duke Energy North America, based in Houston. He was named Director of Trading and Risk Services later that year. He led derivative accounting and trading control functions for energy trading and marketing activities and was instrumental in successful wind down and disposition of Duke Energy North America in 2005. Following Duke Energy's merger with Synergy in 2006, he was appointed Vice President and Controller for the Commercial Power segment and responsible for accounting, financial reporting, and internal control functions. So he's responsible for the switch. When you turn on the switch, the lights go on, and doing that at an affordable cost. That's right. In 2009, he was named Director of Forecasting and Analysis, where he played a significant role in addressing challenging business and strategic issues, including leading financial due diligence for Duke Energy Progress Energy merger completed in 2012. He became Duke Energy's Chief Accounting Officer and Controller in September of 2013. Prior to joining Duke Energy, Brian was manager with the international accounting firm Deloitte & Touche, where he oversaw audit engagements for large energy clients. Brian earned a Bachelor of Business Administration degree in accounting from Lamar University in '97. He graduated in '97. And completed the Advanced Management Program at the Fuqua School of Business at Duke University in Durham, North Carolina. He is a certified public accountant in both Texas and Ohio. He and his wife Sabrina, along with their son and daughter, live in North Carolina. My pleasure to introduce to you Brian Savoy.
So I'm really thrilled to be back on campus after being away about 20 years. It looks a lot of the same, I will say. I was telling Henry that the walls are a bit lighter, but minus that, the buildings look the same, and that's good. It was very nostalgic for me driving up this morning. Last night, I actually had the opportunity to stay the night at my grandparents. They live just very, very close to here, and it was cool to spend the night with them. I haven't stayed the night at their home in probably 25 years, so it was really neat to come back and be a part of this, especially without my family around. So my grandmother and granddad were thrilled. I first want to commend each one of you for showing up. Right? This is above and beyond stuff. This is about taking your college career serious, right? Investing in your professional network, investing in yourself, right? Because your college is going to be what you make it to be, right? It's not. We'll get him a second. You got it? All right. No problem. Opportunities in your life come about because of events like this, right? You get to meet people in business like me. You get to meet each other, people you may not be in class with all the time. And that's extremely important. Your professional network is what's going to drive you. It's what's going to open doors. It's what's going to be doors that you don't get to see open because you didn't invest that time. So thank you. You already get a gold star for today. As I thought about what to share with you this morning, a lot of things came through my mind. But a few stuck out. First, I want to talk about Duke Energy because I just met with a class and no one heard of Duke Energy. So I want to talk a little bit about that, about the company I work for, and it's a great company. And to introduce you into a different side of energy. It's not all about oil and gas and refineries like you see across the street here. It's a lot different in my world. But I also want to talk a lot about leadership, about the importance of a willing, can-do attitude, and how critical a strong character will carry you through your career. Okay? So first, let's go into Duke. Anybody heard of Duke that wasn't in the class I just spoke to? Garrett has, a few others. Garrett's my cousin. Yeah, he's here. He's studying accounting.
You're the new one, huh?
Yes. So Duke is the largest electric utility in the United States. I think Henry mentioned that. We have operations on the electric utility side in Florida, North and South Carolina, Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. We have a mix of generation supply, about a third from nuclear, about a third from natural gas, and about a third from coal. Okay. Coal might be a four-letter word in a lot of places in the world, but it is an abundant resource, and it does drive really affordable power. Our coal plants are the cleanest in the world. We have one in Indiana, IGCC, which is an integrated gasification combined cycle plant. It takes coal, turns it into synthetic gas, so it takes the pollutants out up front. The only pollutant left is carbon dioxide, and there's not a reasonable way to shut that out quite yet. But then we burn it like a natural gas plant. Very expensive technology. It was our experiment. It was a $3 billion one, but we learned a lot. Okay? Nuclear is a pollution-free technology. The issue with nuclear is what's left after you spin the fuel. So it runs off uranium, and there's nuclear reactions happening. But when the fuel's spent, what do you do with it? That's our issue with nuclear. Natural gas is a fairly clean technology. There are ways to scrub out the nitrous oxide through SCRs, similar to the catalytic converter in your car, what it does. But there's still carbon dioxide. About half of that's in coal, but gas has about 50%. On the electric utility side, we have 23 million customers we serve. That's a lot of people. That's almost 10% of the United States. And I talked to a lot of our large commercial and industrial customers and what value they see out of Duke Energy. And the main one is the affordability and reliability. Right? We've had customers move operations from Central America to North Carolina because it was cheaper. Because labor is cheaper in Central America, but electricity is about a third of what it is in North Carolina versus Central America. And that was enough to draw their operations there. You go to Europe, electricity is very expensive. We have very abundant resources to make electricity with. Every one of you have grown up with cheap electricity viewed as a right. You have no doubt when you flip the switch, the light comes on. It's not that way everywhere anymore. A little bit more about Duke. We have operations in Latin America. We have 4,300 megawatts of mainly hydroelectric facilities in Brazil, Argentina, Peru, Chile, Ecuador, Guatemala, a lot of countries. I have folks that report to me in all those places, and it's interesting to see the pride that you see out of folks that work for a U.S. company in Latin America. They love it. When I go down there, they love Duke Energy, and they tell me about it. And they're so proud to work for a company that's stable, that invests heavily, and that cares about their employees and their customers the way they do. Lastly, we have an operation called our commercial portfolio, where we build and operate wind and solar plants across the United States. We have a lot in Texas. A lot of the wind is in South Texas and in kind of Midland, Odessa area. Solar is concentrated around Austin, San Antonio. We have, think about where wind is. Wind is where it's flat and there's a lot blowing, like Wyoming, Kansas, the plains. And we have this strung across the United States. We're about the 5th largest renewable energy producer in the U.S. And the largest is NextEra Energy. They're based out of Florida, and they are way the largest. They got ahead of this a long time ago. So what I'm trying to give you a glimpse of our company. We're very large. Our stock is traded publicly, DUK. We registered with the SEC. Many of you have classes and you talk about that. The last class I spoke to, I said, why do companies register with the SEC? Anybody want to take a guess?
Raise capital.
Raise capital. Bingo. You wouldn't do this. This is painful. My job is to keep us in compliance with the SEC. I have to answer to the board about how we deal with the SEC. If I could get enough capital from borrowing from you, I wouldn't go list my securities publicly. But to do that, I have the SEC oversight and their governance. Great answer. So that's a little bit about Duke Energy. I'd love to talk to any of you about the company after our talk, but now we're going to move into you. Okay? Talk about leadership. Leadership is something I spend a lot of my time on. Henry mentioned I manage a large group. My team's about 330 people across a lot of countries. Right? So it's a lot of how am I giving of myself as a leader to grow them and to make sure they're challenged, to make sure we're all rowing in the same direction and we're accomplishing the goals that we've set before us. Right? Leadership is about giving. It's about giving of yourself and your time. It's never about me. It's about them. I can't accomplish one thing without my team. I know that. You know, leadership is one of those things that takes a lot of work. You pour into it. You may not see the fruits of your labor. You don't see them immediately, for sure. You may not see them. But it doesn't matter because it shows that I care. I know each day when I leave, my employees know I care. I care about their growth. I care about their well-being. I want them to have balance in life and grow their career. I have high expectations, but I also want my team to flourish in their personal lives too. My employees don't expect me to have all the answers. That's not what leadership's about. Leadership's about assessing problems, aligning resources to accomplish those problems in a reasonable way. Right? And I'm pretty good at that. And I think about that. And when it's too much, I want my employees to speak up to me. If I've squeezed them too much and said, no, I think you need to do it with 5 people, and they say, no, Brian, we really need 6. If it's thoughtful, I think I change. Right? I can pivot on that. Leadership is not limited by title or rank. I mean, Henry mentioned my title. That means nothing. I'm just Brian. I'm just one other person. I need to do this. I have leaders that are just graduated from college and they come out. You can see the leadership in them from the influence they exert on others, how they lead, how they own projects, right? They take them. Their word stands firm. When they say they're going to do something, they do it. That's how my leadership comes out. If I tell my employees I stand for you, but then every day I'm turning my back on them and not supporting them, they see that, right? People are very, very smart. It doesn't take but one slip to lose all that credibility. But if I walk my talk and stand by my team, I have their trust. Trust is everything. When your employees, when your teammates trust you, they'll do anything for you. You'll accomplish things you never thought you could accomplish because they're standing with you, they're walking with you, and the team is much more powerful than the I. So, as we talk about leadership, attitude is important in that. There's a lot of things in life you cannot control. One's your attitude, right? Your attitude is how you embrace each opportunity, how you embrace each day, right? You get out of bed in the morning, you choose, this is going to be a good day or not. You just said it's the best day of your life, right? So you said in the hallway. And I have a board member that tells me, when I say, how you doing? He says, couldn't be better. Just saying that makes you feel good. Think about that. That changes your whole outlook on the day. And then how you're going to spend your next 16 hours awake is going to drive your happiness, your how you treat others, your communications with your loved ones. It's huge. Your attitude is extremely important. I wanted to share a little bit about how my attitude paid huge dividends early in my career. And this might be a little redundant to the class I just spoke to, but so I was the first of my family to graduate from college. My dad was a steel worker, but he saw the value in sending me to college, and he did everything he could to do that. And and I took it seriously. I was a very serious student, but I worked full-time in college. I worked at a hospital on College Street. So I had to balance a lot of things, and a personal life, right? They all want one. But I was successful and heavily recruited by the big four firms, except Arthur Anderson. It was Big Six then, and they didn't want me because I made 2 Cs. But beyond them, I had opportunities, and Deloitte and Touche hired me, right? And so I remember vividly starting in this class, and we were in the boardroom in Houston, and Deloitte. First day in a big four firm, pretty awesome day, okay? A lot different than the first day at Duke Energy. I'm trying to work on that. But pretty awesome day. You go to the boardroom. HR comes in and gives you a laptop computer. And even when I joined, it seems a long time for y'all. But they were bigger then. That's the only difference. But you go and HR comes and talks to you about the benefits. Then you go to a fancy restaurant, go to lunch with some partners. Then you come back. You get a little bit of tools. And then you go to day 2 and you go out to a client. Okay? That's it. One thing that stuck with me from one of my partners, and to this day, they talk to you about dress. Dress is important, right? And he said, I don't want you ever leaving our building if you're wearing a tie without a jacket, because you might look like a shoe salesman. I tell my team that. I don't know if that's appropriate now, but that's the way I think about it. So I'll take off my jacket inside the building, but if I'm wearing a tie, and I don't wear a tie very often, I will tell you, Duke Energy is we're a power company. I just wear a shirt. But when I wear a tie and a jacket, I keep it on all day. So that's just something they tell you all these things your first day. So your second day, we go up to the client, and it was Duke. Duke was a brand new client for Deloitte in Houston. We had just had a merger with Pan Energy, a pipeline company, and my assignment, along with the 2 or 3 other colleagues, was create the permanent file. That sounds exciting, right? Wrong, right? Creating a permanent file is making a copy of all the key documents, like the articles of incorporation, the stock register certificates, all that kind of stuff. Taking a red pencil, numbering each page, PF1-1, PF1-2, PF1-3, all the way through, reading the files and making a log about what they mean. And a lot of my colleagues were kind of irked, okay? Because my first day, I met people, University of Texas with master's degrees, A&M with master's degrees. I felt unqualified. I'm just a boy from Southeast Texas. They went to Vermont. But I got over it. I told them, I just got married, and I told Sabrina, I said, baby, I don't know about this. I don't know if I can make it here. She said, do the best you can. You're smart. You're driven. Just do it. Well, when I was doing this permanent file thing, some of my colleagues from A&M in Texas said, we're above this. I didn't get my master's degree to do this. They told me that. They didn't tell our senior manager that. And what was going through my head was, I worked at a hospital for $8 an hour, and Deloitte's paying me $34 grand a year to make copies. I'm doing this all day. Even though they didn't tell my senior and manager this, they saw it. They saw my work ethic. They saw their work ethic. There were 2 people in my class that got promoted to manager in 4 years. Myself and Mike Rorick. Mike went to Sam Houston State, a school right like Lamont. He worked there in college. He had a work ethic. My attitude towards my work meant everything. And it still did. It carried me through Duke. How I approach issues, when I'm tasked with something, I get it done. I own it completely. Don't complain about it. Don't fret about it. Make the most of what you're doing, because there's a reason why you're doing it. But where you are, you don't have the vision your superiors have. They've seen a lot more. They know what this is going to do for you. It may feel like you're running in the hamster wheel, but you are doing much more than that. And I'm so thankful I had enough wisdom to act that way then, when I was 22 years old, because it's carried me. You know, when you move through your professional journey, you'll have opportunities to exert your attitude, but you'll also have some tests to your character. And this is something that you don't know when your character's going to be tested. Your attitude, you need to be on every day. Your character can be tested when you least expect it, and probably when you're the most vulnerable. I was doing an engagement for Deloitte. I had a really good one my last couple of months there. I was moving between London and Scotland and setting up energy trading floors. Energy trading was my expertise in Deloitte. I was a consultant there when I left. But Duke was my client in Houston, my main client. And while I was there, they called me and said, we want to hire you full time because we need you and we're tired of paying you by the hour because it wasn't cheap. So I came back and joined Duke. And this was in 2001, a long time ago for many of you. But energy trading was a big, big business, and Enron was the leader, and Duke was number 2. Okay, we had a huge trading outfit, number 2 natural gas trader, and number 5 power trader. And so, when I joined, my job was to basically control the trading limits. So I managed the trading limits for the traders. Make sure we didn't do things that were stupid and cost a whole lot of money for the company. And so, when I joined the company, things were going well. And just a few months into it, I got promoted. I was hired as a manager. I got promoted as director to lead a bigger part of the outfit. And in November of that year, I got a call. And we had operations in Houston, Salt Lake, and Calgary. Okay, Calgary's Canada, Salt Lake City, and Houston. Our Salt Lake City office did all the trading in California because we had plants in California. We had plants across the United States. Okay, we have plants in California too, and we had made a bunch of money this year. Okay, so our budget was $1 billion of pre-tax profits, and we had made $2 billion. We doubled our budget. This was November. She called. Her name was Nancy DeShane. Very, just impeccable lady, super smart. She said, Brian, I got this trade that I think is misvalued, and I think we need to book a mark-to-market gain of $80 million. Can you check it out for me? And that sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, but back then, I've seen worse. I've seen weirder stuff. So I said, send it to me, let's look at it. So my team looked at it, and I called back and said, yep, we do need to fix it. We're going to do that in November's close. Close the books every month. Well, a few days had passed, and the next Monday morning, our senior executives of the business met for their Monday morning executive meeting. And coming out of that, our CFO called me. Her name was Mary, and she said, Brian, you know that trade Nancy was talking to me about last week? I said, yeah, the $80 million thing. She said, yeah, I need you to kind of sit on that. Can you keep studying it till next year? I said, what? She said, we really don't need the earnings this year. We've doubled our earnings target. We really need it next year. Next year's shaping up to be pretty tough. And I sat on this trading floor with about 300 people. I sat right in the middle. It's pretty loud. But I paused. 1,000 thoughts went through my head. I thought, I just joined this company 6 months ago. This is my boss's boss. She's asking me to do something I know is wrong. What do I do? I said, Mary, you hired me because I'm an expert in this business. I'm going to book this $80 million right now in November because it's the right thing to do. Then it was very silent. She kind of went, okay. I called my wife Sabrina right after that and said, hey, baby, I just told my boss's boss I wasn't going to do something. I'm probably going to be fired tomorrow. But it's okay because it's the right thing. Well, tomorrow came, I wasn't fired. But a week came, and Enron went bankrupt. And I was tasked with finding our exposure to Enron. That was a huge project. And I started working, I was working like crazy then. But then we had some investigations, because the SEC, remember those folks I was talking about earlier? And the FBI, the guy with the guns? They came and started looking at all of our trading practices. And talking to lobbyists, right? Well, I never brought this up, but someone brought up that $80 million trade back in February later that next year. Our CFO resigned about 2 months later. I know I would not be the chief accounting officer of if I would not have taken that stand when I was 26 against our CFO. Your character will be tested. I don't know what kind of wisdom I had that day, but I thank the Lord I had it. Because this was a defining moment in my career. You may not, hopefully you're never tested to that degree, right? But there will be times when you're in the gray. In finance and accounting, you cannot afford to be in the gray. There are too many Monday morning quarterbacks waiting to take you to task for slipping. Don't slip. Ask questions until you know that you know that you know this is the right thing to do. I can't stress how important that is. In my career at Duke Energy, when I first started, so back at that time, I viewed my job as very transactional, right? I worked, they paid me well. Deloitte paid me well too. I wasn't in it like I was really in it. I mean, I worked hard because I had hard work ethic, but over time, this company became part of me, right? And it probably happened when Henry mentioned I was involved in a wind down. So me and about 5 other folks helped sell the business. And we had 23 power plants in the United States and a huge trading book. And it was very sad for me because this was a company I'd worked for. It was a client before then, but we sold it. And I was asked to move to Cincinnati to be the controller over our new operation we had in Cincinnati. We bought a company called Synergy. And I was debating, do I take a severance package and get another job in Houston? I mean, I'm from Texas. People from Texas usually don't leave, right? You like it. Do I stay with Duke? And I thought long and hard about it. And Sabrina did not want to move to Cincinnati. Okay? It's a lot different between Houston and Cincinnati. If you've ever been there, it's way different. But something came over me saying, man, this company is part of me. I love it. It's part of who I am. And I felt my relationship moving from that transactional, I work, I get paid, to one that I'm all in for this company. I'll do anything. When I read a bad article in the press about Duke Energy, I feel it in my bones. It isn't just something, I read it and man, I'm kind of bummed. No, I feel it. And I want to fix it. I want to help you understand why it's not right. And I moved to Cincinnati, and we stayed there for 3 years. And a little story about that. I didn't love Cincinnati, but the people were great, but the place just wasn't my cup of tea. And we were, Sabrina and I were at a Deloitte event in Kiowa, South Carolina. Beautiful beach place, right? And my boss, who's the current CFO of Duke, was there with his wife. And after a couple glasses of wine, Sabrina said, Steve, when you move us to Charlotte, because I hate Cincinnati. And I said, baby, that's my boss. Right? Don't talk to him that way. This was the summer of 08, and in early 09, he moved me. He moved me to Charlotte, which is our corporate headquarters. And he's still my boss today. He's a great guy. He'll tell that story and he's tickled about it, but it could have went a different way, right? So be careful what you say. Honesty goes a long way, though. And the journey I've had with the company has been tremendous. I've got to do so many things. When I went to Charlotte, I worked in forecasting and planning. A little, use all your skills in accounting, but you use them in the future. I do 5 and 10-year plans. One thing about those, they're always wrong, but you get to be creative about them. We merged with Progress Energy, a $30 billion merger. I led the due diligence for that. I took secret trips on our corporate jet to New York and to D.C. and meet with the Progress Energy people undercover so that no one would hear about this merger before it happened, because when mergers leak, prices go up and bad things happen. So it's been a tremendous ride. And my point about this is, when you're at a company and your view of this working relationship is just transactional, change it. And if you can't change it with that company, find another job. Your career is too short to spend it on a transactional relationship with a company. You have a ton to offer. And when you're all in, your productivity will skyrocket. Your ability to climb the ladder is going to grow. Your aspirations will exceed your expectations, and that's a huge, huge benefit to your career. I can't stress that enough. Never sell short your value. Be proud of yourself, but work hard to get there. I'm going to stop there and have some questions, but I thank you for your attention, and I want to take as much time as we need. So, first brave soul. Come on. Yes, sir.
Well, could you really clarify for my mind what is transactional?
To me, transactional is I do something for you, you give me value back, we're done. Deal's done, right? So it's kind of a one for one, right? Not a manage for one. I contrast that with being all in, where if I'm all in, I don't even care what you give me. I'm doing.
So you would replace transactional with all in?
All in or fully invested, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
What made you decide to leave Deloitte, you said?
Deloitte.
And join Duke Energy?
Great question. Public accounting is tough. Okay. I was going to be partner. There's no question. I had no other career path in my line of sight. I got married right before I started with Deloitte, right after I graduated from here. It was very stressful, my marriage. Sabrina had called an attorney. I didn't know that. To get a divorce. The attorney told her she wasn't ready. I didn't know all this. But when the opportunity came to go to Duke, I had a couple places in mind, Enron and Duke. I'd go work at. That was it, honestly. Enron was the top-notch company in the world at that time, the world, not just Houston. Right? So those were the two companies I would have entertained offers on, no others. And when Duke called with a 50% raise, okay, that didn't hurt. But Deloitte matched it. They don't usually do that, but they didn't have a lot of expertise in this field because it was brand new. Energy trading was not that mature. They said, we'll match it. I was like, you should have matched it yesterday. I'm going because you exploited me. I'm going to go get my value and save my marriage. So when I went to Duke, I told my boss, I said, look, I need to show Sabrina she's number one. So I will be leaving here on time. I will do everything I need to do. I can do it at home, but I got to show her she's number one. Because at Deloitte, I either worked till 10 o'clock at night or went to a happy hour. Okay? My marriage has been successful. We're about to be 20 years, so it's great. But it took that. Yes, sir.
They got into this sort of cycle of financial engineering.
Yeah.
I'm an engineer.
Okay.
They actually do that. But you want to comment on how they went into this downward spiral? Fundamentally, what went wrong?
So for Enron, the financial engineering, what's your name? I know you're.
Kalan? Srinivas Kalan?
Great to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Enron had, first, a lot of cheerleaders on Wall Street. Okay? So you had a lot of people vested in Enron stock that wanted Enron to continue to fly. Okay? So the CFO knew this, Andrew Fastow. And he knew that if he could just continue delivering on the numbers, he won't get many questions because they want them to win, right? So if somebody wants you to win, it was before we had this thing called Sarbanes-Oxley, which is a whole, which y'all are learning, but it was before. I didn't learn it. I I learned it out there. There weren't many controls on how you had to do this, right? So you could do things like take assets and sell them to a special purpose company, which is complex structure, but you're basically taking assets off your books. It makes your company look more profitable. Okay? He did that through setting up a separate board, of which he was the chair of, and he benefited financially by these asset sales. And so he was the financial mastermind behind it, the CFO, which you'd expect. But I think the biggest downfall of that was you had a lot of cheerleaders and not a lot of scrutiny. Now you see a different tone in Wall Street now, right? A lot of skeptics. The credit rating agencies, Moody's and Standard & Poor's, they rate our debt, okay? They are as important or more important than any Wall Street analyst on the stock, okay? Debt ratings are extremely important because you've got to have your debt ratings where you want them to have the interest rates that you desire. Otherwise, you're going to be paying way too much for your cost of money, and that puts you in bankruptcy really quick. So the credit rating agencies were soft. They wouldn't do that now. They beat the heck out of our financial plan. I mean, it's the credit rating agencies, we give them a series of materials about that thick, go through every page, and they beat us down. And it's not just us, it's everybody. They're under tremendous pressure to find the red herring before it happens. So I think that if I were going to sum it up in a short answer, that's how I would say it. It's a lot of cheerleaders and not a lot of controls.
So I mean, there's got to be like hundreds of people
That knew it.
that knew, and even there wasn't another Brian who said, this is not the right thing to do.
Well, okay, there were rules, and the rule was 3% equity. So when you move this stuff off the balance sheet, if you had a 3% equity stake in it, it was okay. Not the spirit of the rule, but that was the rule, okay? So these special purpose entities, and he used that. So he told the technical accountants, the Bryans, look, this is within the rules. We do this. And so that's where sometimes you got to step back and say, are the rules getting us where we need to be? And that's even tougher to be at, right? Because then you got to challenge the rules. And somebody blessed at some point. So he stuck within the rules, but it was wrong. Okay. Yes?
Can you explain the $8 billion gain part? Because perhaps I haven't gotten to those classes yet, but I don't understand what the problem is.
With what I was saying earlier about the 80 million
Yeah,
gain.
that one.
Okay, so trading books for derivatives are under mark-to-market accounting. So you mark your book to fair value every day, right? So if I'm buying power at $50 for next January, and next January's market price is 80. I can buy it 50. I could go flip it and sell it for 80. I got a $30 gain today, right? So you take that times however many megawatt hours you're buying forward. That's marking to market. So this deal that I was looking at was a complex transaction. It was a pipeline transaction. You don't even mark to market these anymore, but you did them. They were called energy trading contracts. And it was the ability to gain injecting the pipeline in here in the southeast and transporting up to New York, right? And so the differential in the natural gas prices times the correlation between point A and point B times the volatility. It's a Black-Scholes model that you would run it through. But if you get the inputs right, the value was incorrect. So there was a bust in the old model. The old model, I think, had a price that was stale. It was as simple as that. So the price wasn't updated to today's market prices and correlations. I know it's complicated, but it's complicated. I'd say this.
Was it sort of like an option?
It's a dual variable option.
So
Yes.
why didn't the CFO want you to file it or to put it?
Because she wanted me to book that in January to hit in 2002. Because 2002, we didn't see as many opportunities for the business as we saw in 2001. Looking back in 2001, Enron had run up power prices in California to $1,000 a megawatt hour. And we had plants in California, so we were selling into that market. We didn't run up the price, but we benefited from Enron running up the price. Right? So we made way more money than we expected. street, Wall Street, wants you to make what you tell them, or a little bit more, but never less. And next year needs to be better than this year, right? So if I made $2 billion this year, I can't repeat it next year. Let's hold everything we got till next year. Does that make sense? So next year I can make 2.1, right? Or 2 point, that's the game in meeting. And there's danger in this, but Wall Street is very demanding. Pressures on CEOs is tremendous. And stock price pressure starts with earnings pressures. And earnings are, can you grow your earnings from last year to this year to next year? And that is a balance that, as the chief accounting officer, my job is to say no. I don't like saying no. And I try to think of ways to say, how can we? But how can we within the framework of doing it right? Yes?
I imagine there's been many points in your career where you've just been exhausted or to the point where you're just flat out burnt out. How do you find the drive and the passion to keep going, to keep making those good decisions? How do you just motivate yourself just to keep on the straight and narrow, if you will?
That is a great question. What's your name?
John.
Great question, John. I've got 3 goals that set the direction for my life. And I try to look back at those goals when I'm feeling that way, because I do feel that way a lot. Get defeated. Everybody gets defeated, right? They're in this order. Be a husband worth respecting. So every day I wake up and I think, does Sabrina know she's number 1 in my life? She's going to be with me long after this job, after our kids are gone. She's going to be with me to the grave. So first and foremost, is Mama happy? Okay. Secondly, be a father worth imitating. Am I putting an example out for my kids to learn from? There are days I fail this miserably. I yell at them. I fail. I do things terribly. But I want them, I don't want to be their friend. I want them to grow up to be a young man and a young woman that people want to be around and they can be productive to society. And the last one is be a leader worth following. And I have to earn that every single day. My employees need to see me. So I can't afford to be defeated. I got to pick it up. People are counting on me to pick it up. So there are days I'm defeated. And I have a mentor I can talk to and tell him, hey man, I'm not doing this right. Can you speak some wisdom into me? Everybody needs a mentor. And everybody should be a mentor. There's somebody you can be speaking into their life today, and somebody should be speaking into your life. Because you can't do it on your own. But that's a great question. Yeah.
So how would you we study Enron accounting classes, but you're like actually in the midst of it. So what was the difference between like that period where prices were high and then right after Enron went bankrupt? What was it like after that?
Oh my gosh. So y'all studied it, so credit risk is something that you studied. Before Enron, we couldn't even spell credit risk. Okay, so my job when Enron fell was figure out our exposure to Enron. And we didn't have credit reports like we have now that says, okay, how much do you have with this kind of party or this one? I had to go find it. So we had a trading system that had millions of records. I had people running queries and trying to figure out, okay, are we long, we short, all these different commodities. Enron was our biggest trading partner. We had $2 billion of exposure to Enron. $2 billion. Okay, that's a lot in any fashion. But what we tried to do, so if I was buying power to Enron, okay, from Enron, somebody else was selling, because Enron really didn't do anything but buy and sell. They were net. They had no productive part of society, right? So they just bought and sold. So they created markets. I tried to find who was on the other side. Could have been Williams, it could have been Dynegy, it could have been El Paso. So I had a team of traders on the phone trying to find these guys. I'm like, okay, we got this period, this position in this month. Let's try to find who the other side is. And we were able to match a bunch of. And so we would reconnect our trades that were broken, right? Because my book was where I wanted it to be. It had the right long or short position I wanted in each commodity. When Enron went away, it got all whacked out. Well, so did everybody else's. So we tried to match them back up. But then they started having bankruptcy rumors about Williams and Calpine. So people, we were able to get it all pieced together for the most part. But then we had credit scares on all these other guys. So then we tried to redo it again, and it was this. It was a tornado. It was hell. I would just tell you. It was hell for a couple months. Then I took some big accounting charges and all that. I think I wrote off about $1.5 billion. I think, we found out. Because when we reconnected the trades, it was at the then market price, not the contract price, because they bought and sold different prices, so we just transacted at today's price. And it wasn't the full $2 billion, but it was almost all of it. It was crazy. Today we have a lot more safeguards. We're smarter. We have credit risk and probability. Might look at them P90, P99 assessments of if they went away tomorrow, how could I correct my positions and close my book, or what's the probability of them going down? So we do a lot more predictive analytics on this to avoid that. We were so reactive then, but that was the times that we were in.
You were also talking about work ethic and motivation. So first, you said you used to work in the hospital, and then you moved to the company where you mostly making copies, and you had other friends. So I just wanted to know, what I see is that you're already underemployed, as in you are more than that, but you are making copies. And how did you transition within 4 years, someone making online? How did that happen?
So I didn't make copies for long. Okay. Once the permanent file was set, you were set, and I was auditing liabilities and cash and things like that. So this was like a week, frankly, right? But I think part of it, in your name, Adit, is having a long-term view.
Okay.
Right? Don't have a short-term view. There are things about every job you're not going to like. That flat out. There are things about my job I absolutely hate. But I love most of it. And I hope you find a job you love the most of. But there are always things that you feel aren't full in your capacity. They're below you. That's okay. Do them. You're still paying you. They're paying you the same regardless, right? So how you respond to some of those, your boss doesn't want to do those tasks either, right? And if you focus your days on making your boss's life better, you will succeed. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's more like balancing out the better part compared to the part that's not important to you. If it's more than you're happy, is that what you're saying?
But think about this. Making those copies, what did it do for me? It taught me the importance of good record keeping. Audit files get looked at by peers. Now they get looked at by the PCAOB. They didn't have that when I was in the audit, right? Record keeping is everything for an auditor. It is your insurance policy, right? Your audit partners want that solid. Well, learning the attention to detail and that every page, showing that I touched every page matters to an overseer. It showed, man, an auditor looked at this, right? So those skills, at that time, did I know I was learning those skills? No. All I knew, I was making copies. But what I've looked back now, I know how to make thoughtful audit work papers that show the work that was done, that demonstrate we had the right diligence to assess the company was in good financial standing. I didn't know that then. So there's a lot more than you see that's going on. Your manager knows that. And some managers will explain that to you. Others won't. Don't be a pest to your manager. Make your manager's life better. Think about that. That's a good thing, right? I don't want people bringing me problems. I don't mind talking about problems, but you better have some solutions in mind. I don't bring my boss any problems without solutions thought through. That's what you do.
When looking for a job, I want to know, how did you set yourself apart from other applicants?
Well, so I mentioned I got a couple of C's, okay? And I wanted to go to work for Arthur Anderson. So Arthur Anderson and Intermont, that's a great combination, right? I don't mind it. I've hired a lot of people with that in their resume. I made 2 C's because I moved out and did stupid things when I was taking intermediate 1 and 2. Most critical, okay? Arthur Anderson would not hire me, okay? I interviewed well, I guess, with a couple of the other firms. Deloitte, the guy that was interviewing for Deloitte was the senior manager. His name is Kevin Cheshire. I dated his sister in high school. So when I interviewed with him, I'm like, Kevin, I really want a job. And he knew me. I was like, done. So sometimes it's who you know, I will say. But I did have other options. Melton & Melton was a firm that I really looked at, kind of a smaller tier firm that was really solid. I didn't go deep in KPMG. I didn't really feel. So I think your professional network is invaluable. And I meant that earlier when I said it. I got lucky about Kevin, okay? But you got to have good grades. And you got to know something about the company. Like when I asked about who heard of Duke Energy, y'all could have looked that up on your phone right before you walked in here. Right? That would set you apart. I'm serious. With the internet being where it is, it wasn't that way when I was here. And now you can learn a lot about somebody before you even meet them. And I would say leverage it as much as possible. Garrett?
Networking is really important. How do you balance your networking with your social life, or like with your personal life? I know that was really hard.
It's very hard. So everybody's got to eat lunch. Lunch is extremely valuable to me. I book about 3 or 4 lunches a week with people. Some people are people I'm mentoring. Others are strategic relationships I need to maintain throughout our company, like our head of operations and supply chain and those types of things. But I'm going to be at work anyway. Everybody's got to eat, so I can get them lunch. We have new hire classes come in. I go to happy hour with them, but I try to stagger that, so I'm not going a lot during the week. I travel a lot, so if I'm traveling along, I will say, look, I got to be home for a while. And it's hard. Time is my hardest thing to manage every single night. Sunday night, I'm looking at my calendar. I'm thinking, how am I going to do all this? And how do I get from A to B to Z? And if I could ask for anything, it would be more time. But everybody gets the same amount, and we all have the opportunity to manage it. Yes,
Can I
sir.
ask you to put on your forecasting that you did
Yeah.
before, and tell us your thoughts of the next 5, 10 years on the energy industry in general, prices, what keeps you awake at night?
You know, energy has changed tremendously since I've been in it for 20 years, and it's continuing to evolve tremendously. I was talking to the class right before this one, and I was saying how our customers expect more from their energy companies now, right? You expect bill alerts. Hey, you're about 80% of what you were last month. You might want to tamper it down. Check your thermostat. You can pay when you want. Prepay even. And just use that, right? Utilities have built systems to be very efficient over time, but they're not nimble and agile. We're moving into a point of being nimble and agile. We've launched a customer information system, so we'll be able to understand our customers better and to serve them more effectively. There's a story I have. My name's on the website, so sometimes I get customer calls, especially after they've called the customer call center and was unsatisfied. So they call me. And one customer, so she was a customer in Raleigh, North Carolina, which is just north of Charlotte, 3 to 4 hours. But it's a different territory. It was our Duke Energy Progress division. And she moved to Charlotte. She'd been a customer for about 10 years and paid well, paid fine. When she moved to Charlotte, she had a credit check, and we assessed a deposit. The deposit's like 2 months. It's a lot of money. And she called me. She's like, I've been a customer 10 years, and now your company wants to assess me a deposit. And of course, I didn't know what she was talking about. She called me, and somehow the phone got through. And I said, well, tell me what's going on. And so I looked into it, and what happened was our systems are so archaic, they're not talking to one another, right? Because the Duke Energy Progress system is different from the Duke Energy Carolina system. Because they're so big, and they're on mainframes, and they were built 30 years ago. And to replace those systems is $750 million. Well, we're going to replace those systems, but it's going to take a while, right? So how do we make the right changes now to meet her needs and to meet her expectations? And we're trying to bridge that gap. And so you got to deliver some value today while you keep your vision on the future and make these huge investments. We're also investing heavily in our grid. As solar gets more on our grid, the grid is taxed. It's not made for power to be generated at all points on the grid. It's made to be made in big central station generation and send out. Not send from your house to your house to your house, to back here, going back to the grid. And that's what we've got to build it for, right? And we've got to put battery technology on the grid so it can deal with this intermittency of renewables. And we've got a very small penetration of solar right now, probably 1%. We don't know what that tipping point is. It might be 4 or 5%, where we really have to have that grid hardened such that it can deal with these ebbs and flows of electrons. But it is an amazing industry, and it's going to be here. Right? We're going to have electricity to fuel us. One thing I would leave you with, and I did say this to the class, for the cost of a latte every day, we fuel your home to run your air conditioner, your lights, your iPhone, your oven, your toaster. Think about that. $5 latte. Your home is fuel. That's the best deal going. That value has not been explained that clearly in the past. It's my mission to make sure you hear that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Brian. Wonderful talk. I'm sure some of them will want to come
Please.
and say hello to you now personally. The rest of you, thank you for coming. I appreciate you being here and look forward to seeing you at the next Exxon Mobil Ticket Request.